Happy Sunday. If you've been thinking about creating income that doesn't depend on one job, or you've recently experienced a layoff, we're going to be talking about contract work today. If you're new here, my name is Marissa Price. I'm the co-founder of the 2026 Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. This is our third annual summit coming up online May 1st through the 3rd. We have 28 phenomenal Black women speakers coming to share their knowledge, expertise, and Celeste is one of our incredible speakers at the summit this year. So with that, I want to pass it over to Celeste to introduce herself and tell us about her work and her channel, which I will link in the chat.
Well, thank you, Marissa, so much for having me. My name is Celeste. I am an explorer. I am a lifestyle experimenter, a YouTuber, and a contract work strategist. And what I do through my work is help Black women align their efforts and their energy and their money with the life that they actually want. Because for me, I think it would be just a terrible tragedy if you put in all this effort, went through this whole life and didn't actually get out of it what you want. I think that a lot of us are kind of living on autopilot. And so, yeah, on my channel, I just kind of have conversations to get us thinking about like how we can be more intentional about this thing. So.
Yes, I love that. I see Glamazini's in the chat. Hello,
Hey, Rushdie.
Yes, how Celeste and I actually met.
Yeah.
Coaching spaces. And I noticed that when you introduce yourself, right, your introduction, we just went through this exercise with Rushni in her group coaching program, right? Like, who are you? The things that are like you outside of what you do. And so like, has that been a transition for you to kind of like think about yourself outside of the work that you do? Has that been a transition for you at all?
It has not.
Okay.
Because I have my whole adult life, I have been trying to figure out how do I make enough money to do the stuff I want to do without having to work all the time to do it. So like I have always viewed work as a means to an end. Even I was thinking about this, even the decision to go to grad school was because I looked at the salaries for, the entry level salaries, and I was like, oh, that's no. And it's gonna take me how long to get to this other money? So like I've always just kind of had that approach to be strategic and to kind of navigate and build my life to kind of minimize work, to like do the least amount of work. I'm very much like Stephanie Perry. I'm trying to figure out how to do the least amount of work to get the money that I need. So yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible because that has been a journey for me that I'm still unlearning to untie my identity to work. So to hear like this is something that's been like long standing that you've been doing, right? That's like inspiring to those of us who are still on this journey that you can separate those two.
Yeah. Now I have had to unlearn, I would say, sort of the reflexive urge to go get a job when you don't need one, or like after losing one. So I definitely had a moment after I was laid off in 2023 and from a contract job actually. And I was part of a mass layoff, like my whole industry and my company had done mass layoffs. So like the market was flooded and I'm like stressing myself and trying to apply for jobs. And it was funny. I actually came across a video of Stephanie's and she was like, stop applying for jobs. You don't need one. I was like, you know what? You're right. I don't need one. So that part, just the programming, I'm still, sometimes I still have to unlearn that. But just the concept, like my concept of self revolving around being a worker, I have never had that. So that's not an issue for me.
Okay. That's incredible. I did want to ask your session at the summit, which we're so excited about, focuses on contract work to build flexible income, right? Kind of rooted in freedom to choose, like, what do you want your life to look like at a certain point of the year? Just want to ask, like, why do you think that this is important now, contract work, given what we're experiencing as Black women in this economy, with the amount of us who have been pushed out of the workforce, right, over the past year and a few months, over 600,000. Like, why is contract work such a viable option during these times. Anything that you want to share around that?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of Black women are learning, unfortunately, the hard way that jobs aren't stable. No industry is stable. No, like there is no safe place, and there is no such thing as job security. And so I think it is more important than ever for us to take more agency over our, ways to earn income, and be less dependent on any single, way of working. So I think contract work is a tool that we can have in our toolkit. If you are someone who's been impacted by what's been going on, it can have like a shorter cycle, like a shorter span of time to like go through the job interview process, and get you back to earning money faster than trying to apply for a full-time job. So that's one aspect. It's also like a nice middle ground. Like you don't have to go all the way to self-employment and being a business owner. Like I think a lot of times for Black women, that's what we think we have to do, if we find ourselves in a position where we need money. And being a business owner is not for everybody, and it takes time to build as well. So like contract work is kind of like a nice middle ground for that. And then also I think my like secret radical reason is that it's kind of what we talked about a few minutes ago. Just I feel like Black women need to emotionally divest from work culture
Mm-hmm.
and get more transactional about it. And being a
Mm.
contractor is definitely a way to be able to do that.
Ooh, gems. Thank you. Thank you. You
Hmm.
mentioned agency. I think
Hmm.
that's so important to be able to choose like
Hmm.
which types of roles, like projects that you work on, versus as I've experienced in a 9 to 5 role, kind of having stuff put on you and you don't really have that sense of agency because it just becomes part of your role. And a lot of times in 9 to 5s, like we will have multiple roles put on us as Black women. And so just to hear like a contract role, for people who may be new to like even the concept of contract work, can you just describe, I guess, like the basic structure? I know that there are different ways to do it. You can do it like a term and then renew your contract, but I guess just the basics if people are just brand new to this term.
Yeah, so I definitely want to be clear about the kind of contracting that I do and that I'm talking about and that I will be talking about at the summit. So there is independent contracting, and that is more of where you're self-employed and providing, working on a project, like you were talking about choosing a project, um, and you sign an agreement with, that client to do that work. And you do it on your own, you set your schedule, you set the terms. The kind that I do is contracting through a staffing agency. And so I am a W-2 employee of that agency. And then I am assigned to a client for a fixed duration, to work on a team or a project or whatever.
Okay.
So it usually has an end date, typically like 3 months on the short end, 2 years maybe on the long end.
Hmm.
And then your payroll and everything goes through the agency. So you're not handling the taxes or doing any of that. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's the difference.
Okay.
And a lot of times you're doing really the same role that full-time employees that have the same job title are doing. You're just,
Hmm.
it's just administratively is different on the back end.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I was thinking about like 1099. That's the types of contract roles that I
Hmm.
do as a freelancer. But to hear that you're a W-2 employee for the agency
Yep.
and you're assigned to different companies. Oh, interesting.
Mhm,
I didn't
and
know
then
that.
when I say independent consulting, that's what I was referring to, yeah, being a 1099.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, so that's a nice, like, middle ground between those 2 types of structures as well, between, like, full-time and being 1099. I'm kinda, like, in between. So
Interesting. Okay.
I do pick, like, it's like, do I wanna work on this team, at this company, on this team, doing this kind of work? But then like in the day to day, I'm doing, it's basically I'm operating the same way I would as if I was a full-time employee.
Okay. Okay. And can I ask like the benefits? Because that brings up
Mhm.
so many questions for me. Because as a 1099 employee, right, I have to like basically have my benefits outside of my work, which I know
Mhm.
can be like a fear for a lot of people. As a
Yeah.
W-2 employee of the agency, do they provide benefits, I guess?
It depends on the agency. A lot of
Okay.
them actually do.
Wow.
Every
Okay.
agency I have ever worked for, has provided benefits. Now, I pay more for those. They're not gonna, the payroll deductions to pay for the premiums, they're gonna be higher
Hmm.
than they would
Okay.
be if I'm a full-time employee, but, yeah, some agencies offer PTO. Um, a lot of them have 401ks. They might not have a match or they might have a lower match than if you were a full-time employee. But like if you're thinking the reason that you can't pursue contracting is health insurance, then that's not a reason to not look into
Yeah.
contracting.
Okay. Wow. I just learned something new. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for that. And I see Glamazini says, I've done both, haven't done an agency contract in 15 years. Thank you for sharing. Hello, Edna B. Lurking. Thank you so much for joining. And hello, Marissa. Yes, I never had benefits through the agency. I took the higher hourly rate instead. Okay. So it sounds like
Yeah.
there's some agency within that, like choosing which route you want to take.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've never done it, but I've had conversations with agencies where they will tell you like, without insurance, the hourly rate is this. But if you want insurance or you want PTO, then they reduce the rate to kind of cover that. But I actually do the opposite. I ask them how, I make sure that there is health insurance. I find out ahead of time how much it is, and then I build that into my rate so that I'm not paying that extra.
Okay.
They are. So, yeah,
Wow. Okay.
that's like advanced level.
That is so helpful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, yeah, and you mentioned like kind of this notion, I guess, that jobs are supposed to be loyal, right? If we pour all of ourselves sometimes into these roles, that they're supposed to feel a certain type of like, oh, we need this for this person to keep in place, but we're seeing the rug being pulled out from so many of us right now. And just even to have that understanding that we can create, I guess, like pathways and options for ourselves, understanding that the loyalty does not exist, right? That we've been told it does.
Mhm.
Sometimes we're seeing like the reality that they don't feel that way towards us, that we may feel towards the company or organization. Anything you want to say on that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I One thing, okay, so I'm going to say two things and try and keep it short. So,
Mhm.
one thing that irks me about full-time interviews is the questions around like, why do you want to work here? It's like they want you to emotionally invest and prove how emotionally invested you are in that company and the founder story and all of that stuff. We started in a garage and I'm like, I don't care. I do not care. But like, I think that's all part of the like manipulation, right? You have to like buy into the
Ooh.
whole thing as opposed to like, I'm just here for like to trade my skills for a paycheck. Like, what are we doing? So one thing I love about contract work is that it keeps you as the worker and your, manager in the transactional mindset because we both know there's an end date on this thing. I'm only here for 8 months, right? So, you
Hmm.
know, we our relationship proceeds accordingly. You don't start treating me like an employee. You don't start trying to tell me when I can take PT, like it just keeps everybody in the proper frame of mind. So,
Right.
if you are I did a video yesterday about like 5 reasons you should take a contract job, and I talked about all the different reasons, all the different times in my life or situations where I use contract work. And one of them was to exit a toxic job. And
Mm.
so, I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, if you're in a situation where you're like, I just want to do the job and go home, my manager's like all in my business and or whatever, like whatever situation you're having. Like contract work is a nice like guardrail. It's a guardrail on
Mm,
your work
mhm,
hours because it's typically 40 hours a week because they don't want to pay
mhm.
overtime. It's a guardrail, on your personal time. Like it can just free up a lot of time and emotional bandwidth. And so I think that's another thing. It's not just like a good way to make money. It also can just give you a better lifestyle.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's so important. And the term that came up for me is boundaries, right? So if
Hmm.
you're someone who struggles with boundaries at work, like giving your all, it sounds like this can be an effective way to like have more like parameters in place around your work. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I would agree. They typically have so the reason that a company might bring in a contractor is like they don't have the head count for a full-time employee because that costs like they have to pay for the severance and the insurance and all the overhead or whatever. Whereas with a contractor, the staffing agency handles all of that. I mean, you don't get the severance. Well, I actually did get like a small severance when I got laid off in 2023. But anyway, I wouldn't expect that. But anyway, so it's cheaper, right? And so they usually have like work scoped out that they want the contractor to come in and do. And so that works in my favor because I don't have them like throwing everything, the kitchen sink and everything at me. It's like, oh, yeah,
Mm.
you're being brought in to work on this thing for 8 months and launch it. Right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that kind of helps with like the workload and the work life balance and the expectations. So,
Ooh, wow. So many gems already. Thank you. Thank you. I see Meg says job interview questions are such bull. Like Celeste said, I want to work here because I need money. Yeah.
I,
Yeah. And viewing it, I think you said like as a transaction, right? This is my skills for money. That's it. We're not getting into like the emotional manipulation of me feeling like I have to stay here if it becomes toxic, which workplaces often
mhm.
do.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
family, all that. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, we are
It's a
not.
lot. Yes. Glamazini says, I was watching that video, Celeste, and you mentioned this one, so I skipped over here.
Good. My cross promotion worked.
Yes. So let's see the differences, like to what we've just been talking about between contract work and a traditional job. Anything you want to share around what makes these two things like different in our minds?
Mm, I mean, I've been doing it for so long and for so much of my career, it's hard to remember like was there a time where I ever really thought about them differently? But
Mhm.
what I would say, you know what, I think it's interesting when I talk to just, people that I know and people in my life about how I structure work in this way. And some of the feedback I get from them is like, well, that just sounds unstable. Or like, what do you mean your contract is ending and you're not going to look for another job right away? And I'm like, you can plan for these things, right? You can plan and you can
Mhm.
save. And I think there's just an underlying assumption that I have to be working all the time.
Ooh.
And
Hmm.
that like that's a whole like topic in itself, right?
It is.
Um, and that like something's wrong if I'm not, right?
Hmm.
And that you can't financially plan for any instability that comes. And I'm like, I think that you can. And actually, I think that I'm better positioned because I'm more flexible and more nimble. Like, I'm not going to be as blindsided, I think, as the full time employee who's been somewhere for 15 years and gets laid off. Like, I've been in the
Mm.
market more recently. Um, Not only that, because I kind of move around, I'm gathering new skills at each place that I go to. I'm using different software and tools. Like I'm becoming more valuable by moving around more frequently than if I just stayed in one place. And then also, I'm negotiating rate increases as I'm moving around, which
Ooh.
is something you're definitely not going to get. You would get cost of living, but like I don't have to like prove myself to get the raise that I want. I can just go get it. So, yeah, I mean, I can just give it to myself. Just say my new rate is this. So yeah.
Ooh, powerful, powerful. I did see a comment here. Yes, Blue Green says, I have horror stories from being a full-time employee. Yes, it's a lot, right? And like you said, I just wrote down like our worth is so connected to the work that we do, right? And so this
Mhm.
feeling that we have to be working all the time is often connected to a lot of deeper emotions, socialization, and so to begin to like disentangle, like your worth is inherent versus
Mhm.
what you do, right? I think is so important. And like you said, the flexibility of contract work versus, I don't know, feeling like the job that you're in is stable if you do work full time, right? A 9 to 5. And then you experience an unexpected layoff. You don't have that level of like flexibility that, oh, I have the skills, I can go out there and like I don't know, there's a lot of fear around that, that it sounds like the flexibility of contract work may alleviate some of that. Would that be
I
fair?
I think that how do I want to answer this? The system is kind of set up for us to fully depend on it
Mhm.
for our survival. And
Mhm.
I think that's intentional because if you depend on it for your survival, then we have the power to, we have power over you, right? And so I just think even though people think like, oh, contracting is not as stable, again, I think that the stability and the security comes from your ability to be able to go out into the marketplace and make money when you need to. Is your stability and security doesn't come from like that, I don't know, almost like parental figure
Mhm.
of your employer. So I think it's just a
Wow.
mindset shift, that, like you said, this it's been ingrained in us. It's definitely a mindset shift. Um, I talk a lot about money on my channel as well. Let me get some water.
Mhm.
Um, because I do think underlying a lot of these fears that we have is like the financial aspect. Like, how
Yes.
could I ever do something that's not guaranteed?
Mhm.
And I think, you can build some buffer into your budget to make you like more confident about that. But I also think that you should realize that what you're doing currently is not guaranteed either. So I think that's just a big misconception. So yeah, it's
Ooh.
mental to me.
Uh-huh.
It's mental.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll read a comment from Meg Pink. I'm usually at work on Sundays. I'm currently working full time, but it's so draining. Maybe contract work could be a good option. So, would you say if someone's experiencing maybe burnout in their role, could contract work be like a nice, like in between, maybe before pursuing another full time role or something like that to recover from maybe the burnout of a job, a traditional job?
I mean, absolutely. Like
Mhm.
I said before, you're just going to have those guardrails in place. And that's, that's just based on the structure of contract work. Like it's still going to be, it's hourly and it's based on a 40-hour work week. Um, and so, yeah, those guardrails are going to be in place. And then also, I think just culturally as a contractor, you aren't going to be as involved in the like, office politics and the you're just not gonna be
Mhm.
in the mix quite as much. So all of that is like emotional energy that you get to reclaim, and keep for yourself.
Ooh.
So, yeah,
Wow. Wow.
because we don't
I'm
think
gonna
about that. Like, we're
no.
thinking about, like, just the time. Okay, I need to do a whole video about, like, back in the day, the amount of time and money and, like, drinks at happy hour that that I did. It's like the work day sucked, the job sucked, the work day sucked. And then I
Mhm.
spent like another 2 hours recapping how much the day sucked and spending $75 on, appetizers and drinks. Like
Uh-huh.
so yeah. And then you go home and you call your friends and your family and you talk about it some more. Like toxic jobs drain so much from us that we don't even realize.
They
And
do.
I since 2020, no, since 2022, since 2022, I close my laptop at the end of the day and I work remote, so I realize that's a privilege, but I close my laptop at the end of the day. I don't think about work until I open the laptop again the next morning. And that is so freeing. Like, I cannot tell you. Like, from that person
Uh-huh.
who used to spend, I'd be like, that money could be in the market right now. All that money I spent on martinis and shots trying to like forget what that lady did. So anyway.
That's such a good point, though, like the extracurricular things that you're expected to attend, right? To be a team player in a lot of these roles. And I need to do a video on that. Like they use that
Mhm,
as a weapon against us so often as Black women. You're not being a team player if you don't want to attend the happy hour because you feel uncomfortable, right? All these different like microaggressions that we experience in these spaces, it runs deep, right? And so to hear like contract work can allow you to like have a structure in place and like set those boundaries around this is work and I can
mhm,
leave it when I close my
mhm.
laptop versus what some of us have experienced in a 9 to 5 role. I think is so important.
Yeah, and also, I meant to say this earlier, I lost my train of thought, but, like, um, when I was talking about giving myself a raise, I know Black women who, were the person above them left. I'm gonna just tell a specific story. The person who was in the role left. A Black woman was ready to move into the role, applied for it, and they said, "Oh, do the job for a year and then we'll see." And I was like, "Wait, they want you to do the labor first, and then they will decide if they're gonna pay you for doing the labor?"
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what
there's
happened to
just
me
a lot
actually.
of it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that just when you said the extracurriculars, it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
this unpaid, unaccounted for
Yes.
extra stuff that goes into being a full-time employee that I am not interested in.
Yes. Ooh, so many things are coming up. I see a question from Meg. Would contract work be a good way to build a client base and get experience? Are freelancing and contract work the same? So I think from what Celeste shared, I think they're different, right? There are a lot of
Uh,
differences. So I had a community, Black women freelancers, right?
mhm,
Focused on freelancing, which is typically 1099
mhm,
contracts. And
mhm.
so this is why I was speaking about how to find your ideal clients, right? How to market your services. It's more in line of entrepreneurship as we think about it traditionally, but contract work, as Celeste said, is kind of that in between being a W-2 full-time employee and being a freelancer 1099 contractor. But anything you want to share around that, Celeste?
Yeah, so exactly. I do contracting through staffing agencies, and that is different than freelancing or being being a 1099 independent contractor. And the reason I have done that before. Um but I just got tired of like having to continually line up new clients and prospect and all of that and
Yep.
market, and I was like, I just want to do the work. I don't want to do this extra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually used contracting, like, that was one of the stories I told in that video. I used contract work to get to, like, rebuild steady income, because I was like, "Yeah, this is drying up, and I don't feel like having to to keep, like,
Yep.
pitching and selling my
Could be a
services."
lot of work. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So if you have a business that you wanna keep, but maybe it's not where you want it to be, you could maybe do that on the side and keep it going and then still pay bills in the meantime by doing, a contract job. So,
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I did see a comment. Thank you so much for joining. I want to leave my job so bad, but starting my own business would be way too much work right now. So I think that speaks to what Celeste just shared, right? If you're not
mhm,
interested in going like full entrepreneurship, freelancing, contract work can kind of be like that in
mhm.
between full W-2, full time employment. And Celeste said she's like a W-2 employee within the staffing agency,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. When
Okay.
you sign up with an agency, and they send you, they're like, "Oh, we'll submit you for this job at this client." If you get the job, you are an employee of the staffing agency. Like, my paychecks come from my staffing agency. So,
Okay. Thank you so much. Glamazini says that was my favorite part. They be going to meetings I'm not required to attend.
oh my God, my colleague, he just left the company, but like 2 months ago, he was like, "Okay, I gotta go. I gotta work on my, performance review." And he goes, you don't have to do those, do you? You don't have to do this thing, do you? And I was like, I sure don't. Good luck with
You don't
that.
have to do performance reviews?
No. I don't work there. Why am I doing it?
Those would stress me out so much.
Oh no, I do not
Wow.
work there. Like the performance review is so that you can determine if I should get a promotion or a raise and all the other stuff, but I don't work there. So I'm not eligible to get any of those things. So no. The manager at the client is not like my actual manager. They're the manager of like the work that I do, but they're not the manager of my like career progression, right? Like from an HR perspective, they're not my manager. I was gonna say something else. Oh, um, Rushni, they have all hands meetings that are, FTEs, full-time employees only. I'd be like, oh, okay, quiet time. What can I do when everybody's at all hands? Like, I don't care that I can't go to your all hands. So yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah.
Lemsy says, I became an antisocial employee, so I was a perfect contractor. Right. So if you
Yeah, if
don't
you don't want to do
enjoy
the
like
extra.
the mingling, yes. The mingling, the happy hours, the extracurriculars
I
that
actually
are
don't mind that stuff. I don't wanna
mhm.
have to do it. I'm not an
Mm,
introvert, so, like, I'll talk to some strangers, like, I don't care, but I don't wanna have to do it and have my career advancement in my performance based on it.
mhm. Mhm. All hands except mine. Wow. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that could be something to explore if that gives you anxiety. I know for me, having social anxiety, just like the prospect of thinking that I have to attend this thing to get the promotion was a lot. Right. And
Mhm.
so maybe contract work can be something to explore for that reason, for that benefit too. Let me get to, thought I saw a question. Oh, Blue Green says, got fired because I didn't go to lunch with team every day.
Oh, no. Absolutely
I'm
not.
so sorry.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
these things that are unwritten, right?
Right.
That we're expected to do. This takes energy. This is not in our job description, right? But in order to like play the game in these full-time like 9 to 5 traditional roles as we think about them,
Mhm.
like that becomes part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole layer of performance that I don't have to do. And I know you talk about that a lot on your channel, just like it takes a lot for us as Black women to show up in the workplace and be and be palatable. Let me
Uh-huh.
put it that way. And a lot of that as a contractor, because I don't want anything from them. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want now you can go in there and be a contractor and prove yourself if you want a full-time job and you're hoping that they convert you at the end of the contract. That is an option, and I have had that happen before. But for me right now, I'm not interested in that. And so because of that, yeah, there's a whole layer of I used to I used to make sure that when I was on camera, I had like I was professional from the waist up.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think the first like year that I worked in tech, I kept that up. And now I'm in hoodies. I'm in ponytails and headbands. I'm like, you're just gonna get, this is what I'm on today, and it's fine. So yeah, that level of performance, I've over the years I've let a lot of that go. So
Mm-hmm. Ooh, the performance aspect. Yes. And you mentioned kind of like setting your rates, like increasing your rates every time that you do another contract. Can you just explain like how does that work? And really like having the power to be like, oh, my skills are actually worth this now when I go to this new contract. And how like I guess like freeing that can be.
yeah, now it depends on what the job market looks like, at the time or whatever. But I know for full time, a lot of it's like they anchor on what you currently make or what you made before. Um, but with contract work, it it's not so much based on like, well, what was your last salary, right? The starting
Mm-hmm.
point is usually like whatever they put in the job post, that it pays hourly, which I never accept. I just kind of use that as a reference point, and then I do market research to kind of see like what's the average,
Mm-hmm.
rate or salary for this job. But then I also, here's a gem. I ask every time I, start a conversation with an agency, I ask if they have benefits, and I ask for a copy of the benefits booklet so that I can see the prices of what the health insurance is going to cost me.
Okay.
And then I do the math to like figure out how much I need to add to my rate so that um I'm making more than I made at the last job, and I'm paying at least equal for the health insurance, like not more. So that's the rate that I'll counter to them. Um, and yeah, so that's sort of, I don't want to get like too in the weeds, but like at a basic level, that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I know that at the last job I made this, and this is what the health insurance cost.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you're saying your job is paying, and this is what your health insurance costs. And I just internally, I'm like, okay, well, I need that to represent, a 5% increase. Like they don't know that it's a 5% increase. I'm just telling them my rate. They
Uh-huh.
don't know what's in the rate that I'm saying. So, and they can either agree to it or not. But I would always, you can negotiate, you can absolutely negotiate a contract rate. And my advice is whatever rate that you actually want, go higher so that there's room for you to meet in the middle. So that's my little
Mm-hmm.
negotiation tip.
Thank
And
you.
negotiate on the front end. I talked about that in a video I did about signing a right to represent, which is a whole nother thing. But like before they submit you for a job, they want you to like commit to them being your agency, basically. And they
Mm-hmm.
also want you to like commit to a rate beforehand. Um, and I never just like accept the rate that they say. Like
Mm-hmm.
that exercise I just gave, I do that before I sign that right to represent and let them submit me. So you do that all on the front end. So
Wow.
that's different. We didn't talk about that. Like that's different from a full-time job. And then the interview process. I know you didn't ask this yet, but
Oh,
like
no,
the
no,
interview
no.
process is
Please. This
The
is so
interview
helpful.
process is different as well because like you do your first screening call with the agency, and then, if they submit you and the client likes you, then you interview with the client, but that interview is usually like way less rigorous than like the full-time process and the panel interviews and then the second and then the third and then the take home
Mm-hmm.
assignment and the whatever.
Yes.
Um you don't have to, that's why it's kind of faster if you are someone who was laid off or like need money in a hurry.
Right.
The process is much faster through contracting. So yeah, just
Wow.
wanted to share that.
Wow. That's extremely helpful. Y'all please check out Celeste's YouTube channel, Reset with Celeste. Um, all these incredible gems that she's dropping. Ooh, I wish I would have known this, right? That's one of the reasons why we put on the summit. Is because both Dr. Kamani and I kind of had to like cobble together our exit strategy from a toxic job. Still learning, right? The different options that exist all in one place. And contract work sounds like something I should have considered, right? I didn't even know it existed. I thought it was just full time employment or entrepreneurship, right? Which is what I've been
Hmm.
doing for the past 3 years. But wow, that's yeah, so many gems.
And a lot of people like look around at your
Mhm.
workplace, talk to people. You might have some contractors there now, like working alongside you. If you're emailing somebody and you see like a dash CW in their email address, so they also call contractors contingent workers. So that's what the CW is for. So if you are interacting with some CWs, that means that there are contractors at your job, which means that your employer already has a relationship with an agency. So not only can you like get a new contract job, if you're a full-time employee and you don't want to be anymore, you can see if you can like become a contractor. Like you can do it the other way. You can go from a contractor to a
Mm,
full-time employee, but you could also go in the opposite direction, and become a contractor. So, yeah.
wow. Wow. Ooh. I want to ask about there's this tendency to think that full-time employment is at the top of this hierarchy that's been established. But it
Mhm.
sounds like that's fake, right? We know the hierarchy is fake. The freedom and flexibility that contract work provides, a lot of times, like, it sounds like it's better than full-time employment. I want to ask you about like the you mentioned like the stability, the security is within
Mhm.
your skill set. And I think that we've been taught to see that as the job, like kind of outside of ourselves. How
Mhm.
has that, I guess when people like are new to the concept of contract work, is that something that you see often? Thinking that it is less stable, it is less secure, and full-time employment is better, right? And some of the education and information around it that you've shared with people, I guess anything.
Yeah, let me think what do I wanna say about this? I think, because I just don't buy into a lot of, like, what is sold to us, it's sometimes it can be hard for me to understand, like, but I do get why people feel that way.
Yeah.
Um, but I just say it just all goes back to, like, knowing what's important to you and what you want and what you care about. Like, are you and, like, what trade-offs you're willing to make. So, like, if being VP of whatever, is important to you because it's important to you, not other people, not how it looks on the outside, whatever. If that's important to you, then full-time, work may be what you need to do. If you value freedom and flexibility or work-life balance or some other things, then, maybe you might be open to contracting. But I think I mean, again, I think it's mental. Like, I'm not trying to climb the career ladder. Like, I'm happily off the career ladder. So I don't necessarily care about the titles or the accolades or um, proving anything to my family or any of these other things. And so, I think as you unburden yourself of some of the, like, external expectations and pressures and just say, like, well, what's important to me? Is it free time? Is it, because, like, there's a lot of different ways to make money. If it's just I need to make money, there's a bunch of different ways to make money. Is there something intrinsic in being a full-time employee that is important to you? Um or necessary, right? Like, it may if there's, like, some health issue where you, like, really need the, Cadillac health insurance plan or whatever, that may be a reason to stay in a full-time job. But I think just for every Black woman watching, just think about what is actually important to you, and is that full-time job the only way to get those things? Or is a full-time job keeping you from those things? Because maybe it is. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Just put this in the chat. What's actually important to you,
Yeah, I think
right?
money is the same thing. It's like I asked a friend of mine, I was like, "Have you ever done the math to figure out, like, how much you actually need to work? Like, how many months of the year you actually need to work to make the money you need to live on? Like, you're probably doing some extra work you don't need to be doing." Um, if you actually sat down and did the math, like, they've got
Mhm.
you year round because that's how it's structured. But, like, financially, do you have to be year round? So, something to think about.
Hmm. And this is like pushing back against so many, as you mentioned, like the structures, the systems that tell us that this is the only path. What's coming
Mhm,
up is Glamazini's image of the conveyor belt, right?
mhm.
Like we just have to get up on the conveyor belt, do this step, this step, this step, but really pausing and stopping to ask yourself, is this what I value? Right?
Yep.
Because there are so many options for me to be able to generate income.
Exactly,
Does this
exactly.
fit with the life that I want to live? I think to your point that it could be keeping you, right? The traditional 9 to 5 work that we're told is the cream of the crop. It could be keeping you from the life that you actually want to live.
It could be,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you don't yeah, you're kept busy on purpose. You're kept stressed out on purpose. Um, you're kept in fight or flight on purpose. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, like a lot of interesting things happen when we have the time and the space to think, to reflect. Um, yeah, I could say more, but I'm gonna leave it there. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's on purpose. I think we're in the rat race on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
profitable for others.
That it is. That it is. And what could be possible if we start to question some of these things, right? And see our labors and our labor and our skills as our own versus
Exactly.
being owned by the organization or company.
And that's very well put. And I think contract work is sort of a way to begin to take ownership of your own skills. Like, yes, you're still using them for an employer, um, but you recognize the ownership in that, I think, a little bit more. There's something about when we have full-time jobs or we think like, I could never get a job anywhere else. Like, no, I got in here and that's it. No one else anywhere will ever take me. And then I think that is reinforced through a lot of the abuse and toxicity that we experience at those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but as a contractor, I'm out in the marketplace every other year, every, 15 months or so, or like whenever maybe less actually, when my contract's in. So I'm like having to showcase my skills, every time. And so like I know I get that like marketplace validation every time I
Mm-hmm.
go back out into the market. So, and I think if you, as somebody in a full-time job, like the longer you're there, I think the more scared you might be that you don't have value outside of that. Whereas I feel like I'm getting compliments from the job market every time I go back into it because I'm just there more often shopping myself around to get new contract roles. So, yeah, it's crazy how it kind of all the system reinforces what it wants to reinforce. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you. Meg says full time work isn't stable either, though the pandemic taught a lot of people that, or you could just get fired for any crazy reason. Job stability isn't like it was for our parents, grandparents. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yep. And as we're
yeah,
seeing, right, just being pushed out, 600,000 plus Black women being pushed out of the workforce over the past
that's
year and a few
crazy.
months, right? With jobs that we're told were supposed to be stable and in
Mhm.
place. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's I think and it's really bad for Gen X, I think, because I'm Gen X and we were that s- group that was sort of told, the whole package was like sold to us. Even though we weren't it was sold to us by our parents because that's what they got. But and so we kind of planned our, education and our pathways according to like what we were told we were supposed to do, even though
Mhm.
we knew that pensions were were gone and all of this other stuff. So like I feel like we're that first generation to experience that awakening, that rude awakening of, things are not what we were told they were going to be. I almost feel like the younger generations can see clearly that it's not, like they know coming into the market what it is.
Mhm.
Whereas I feel
Mhm.
like we were already in the job market and then like experienced that disillusionment. So yeah, nothing is stable. Nothing is secure, nothing is stable. I, definitely come to the Job Liberation Summit, learn about all the different tools that you can have in your toolkit. I think is necessary in this time and climate to know multiple ways to get to money.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm. Yes. I do want to ask about your session. Anything, any teasers that you like to share around your session at the summit? Celeste will be joining us, one of 28 incredible Black women speakers at the 2026 third annual Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women coming up online May 1st through the 3rd. for her session From Layoff to Leverage, Finding Contract Work. So yeah, anything that you like to share around that people can get excited for?
Yeah, so if you're brand new to contract work or you're kind of hearing about this for the first time, what I'm going to do is just, give more of an introduction, like some of the things that we talked about today. But what I want Black women to walk away from my session with is like the action steps for how to get started, how to see if contract work is an option for them. So, I'm going to dispel some myths and misconceptions, and yeah, just share some action steps so that you feel equipped to go out and see if this is something that you want to pursue.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. And this, like, honestly sounds like a path that I might explore too. And I think that's like the freedom that you can explore different options. We feel
Mhm.
like we're limited because that's the messaging we receive. That's how the system is structured to
Yep.
make us feel like we're limited.
Hmm.
But knowing that again, like agency, it goes back to what you said. You have the agency, like to decide, do I want to try this out and see how it is? Do I want to try this out? Like go this place? Like you're free. That's
Hmm.
really the underlying message. Hmm.
Yeah. I was thinking about this yesterday. I've worked in so many different like types of jobs. But that's because of contract work. So as far as like freedom and exploring options, that also means like what you actually do for a living. Like just because you have been doing something for 10 years does not mean you have to keep doing it. And it doesn't mean you have to start over either. Like you can figure out what skills might be adjacent to what you're doing, that I mean, skills that you have that might position you for another career, and use contract work to pursue that. Um yeah, I think there's a lot you can do with the in the world of contract work.
Yes, yes. I wanted to ask if there's just one step, I guess, if someone is new to the entire world of contract work, a beginner, maybe interested in exploring, is there one tiny step
Mhm.
that you would recommend, I guess, taking away from this video?
Yeah, I think the first step, the one tiny step, is to see if what you're currently doing, like whatever your current job title is, if there are contract roles out there with that for that job title. So, whatever
Mhm.
you're doing, accounts receivable or, whatever it is, go on LinkedIn, go on your platform of choice and see if those jobs are available on a contract basis. So that would be my first step.
Yes, I love it. And lastly, as we're winding down our conversation today, this has been so amazing. So thank you again for joining me. If someone is interested in working with you, how can they get into contact with you or follow you on your social platforms?
Yes. So my YouTube is Reset with Celeste. That is also my website, resetwithceleste.com. You can schedule a call with me and we will come up with a contracting strategy for you, and just explore your options. Um, you can definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me there. And you can come see me at the Job Liberation Summit.
Yes, we are looking forward to it. I'm putting also less links in the chat. They're also in the description section as well. I do see a question here. Let me see. It seems like contract work may also help with diversifying your work experience. Oh, this is really interesting. I find myself getting bored in roles after a few years, largely due to the lack of variety and change. Anything that you want to say on that?
Absolutely. And I am the same way. I am the same way. I do get easily bored with doing the same thing. Like I have that personality type where I need to constantly be challenged and learning new things. So I am at my, let's see, third contract job in UX, which is like the, what I transitioned to.
Uh-huh.
Um and so it's the same skill set, but a different team, a different company, a different project. And so that helps with like, keeping it interesting and not getting bored because I'm solving different challenges. and having a different experience, but like still with the same skill set. So definitely, if that is your experience, contract work could be a solution for you.
That's amazing. Let me see. Meg Pang, thank you. Thank you for this topic. I've heard of contract work, but I guess I never really understood what it entailed. I just subbed to Celeste's channel to learn more.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. You are so welcome. Thank you for joining. And yes, again, Celeste will be one of our incredible 28 Black women speakers, expert speakers, really, coming to share knowledge, wisdom, strategic guidance if you are in the midst of transitioning out of a toxic work environment or if you have just experienced a layoff. Come join us online May 1st to the 3rd. Registration is open. And I'll put the link here one more time. Any last words, Celeste, before we wind down this conversation that you'd like to share?
Believe in yourself, believe in your skill set and your expertise. Don't be afraid to sell yourself, um, to own your experience, own your accomplishments. Yeah, I know we're being told to shrink ourselves, but I think the more that we understand and believe in our value in the marketplace, then the more empowered we are to go out and earn income in a variety of ways, including contract work. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday. Thank you all for joining who are in the chat. Thank you for watching the replay as well. Again, please subscribe to Celeste's channel, Reset with Celeste on YouTube. And yes, please join us at the 3rd annual 2026 Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women coming up online May 1st to the 3rd. Registration is open. All right, y'all.
Thanks,
I will be
Marissa.
back. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. I will be back Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern with Dr. Cecily Moore, who's another one of our speakers at the summit. So look out for that. You're welcome, Glamazini. Thank you for being here. And yes, until then, y'all, thank you. See you then. Bye.